Starting your notes on simple machine, this should be the very next page in your notebook. And you should make your page look like this. Title is Simple Machines. The definition of a simple machine is a machine that makes work easier for us by allowing us to push or pull over increased distances. Now, you've talked about simple machines in 3rd and 5th grade. We're going to talk about them some more and build on them. There are 6 simple machines that we are going to discuss. Your note paper should look like this. As you can see, I put 3 on one side and 3 on another. You may want to skip 3 lines in between each. My paper's kind of has big spaces so that I can write. So list them. Or you can wait. You can just write number 1 and don't worry about writing 2 through 6 or this. Just write number 1 and then that way, and split your paper in half, and that way you'll see how much space you need. In fact, do that. That's probably easier. Everyone understand what I said? No. Don't write 2 through 6. Just write the number 1. Put a line in the middle of the paper so that you know you're using that space for number 1. Don't worry about writing number 2 yet, because you may go far enough where you know where to write 2 after the fact. Got it? Yes. Okay. So all you should be writing right now is the definition and then the number 1 with a line separating your page. Again, what's a simple machine? Does it say anything about a simple machine having a motor? No. Does it say anything about it having an engine? No. No. It just basically says that it is designed to do what? Make work easier. Make work easier. By allowing you to be able to use a force and increase distances. Making work easier. Any questions? Okay, can I move on? Yes. For everyone? Yes. Okay, then let's talk about some things. What are some tools used to cut through materials? Raise your hand. What'd you say? She says scissors. Give me something else. Ooh. Huh? Knives. Don't say ooh, just raise your hand. A saw. A knife. A chainsaw. Anything else? To cut through? Anything else? Okay, yes, that is called a... Oh my goodness, I can't think of it off the top of my head. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. I know what you're talking about. No, not a wrecking ball. But the thing when you behead people, it'll come to me in a moment. I can't think off the top of my head. Zoe. An axe. Good. So, things that you use to cut materials, all of those things that you mentioned to me, those are simple machines. In particular, it's known as a wedge. A wedge is something that you use in everyday life. How many of you have helped your parents prepare any type of food? What's one of the major things you've done in the kitchen to help prepare food? Dime, tell me.
Vegetables.
What have you done? Cut the vegetables. Good. Stir. All the ingredients out. Who likes French fries? What do you have to do first to be able to make the French fries? Andre? You got to put the pot in there, but I'm talking about the particular potatoes. But before you cut them, who likes that skin on their potatoes?
Wash it.
What'd you say? Jalemi. To peel the potatoes. That's another thing. Okay, that's fine, but we're talking about as far as those tools that we talked about. Peeling the potatoes. It's just the way that they're made. All right, so things that you mentioned, things like chopping vegetables, slicing something, peeling something, even flipping something in the pan like a pancake, or meat that you have to flip with a spatula or something on the grill. Your desserts, you scoop ice cream out to put in a bowl. You may even scoop some fruit to put in the blender to make a smoothie. All of these things that you've used are simple machines. Although you didn't realize it, at the time, the tasks that you were doing, you were using these simple machines to do them. So what is a wedge? Well, a wedge is one of the 6 simple machines, and it is used to separate, also known as cut or chop, and it's also used to lift, help lift things together. What's the one thing you think of when you think of a wedge? A door stopper. That is a misconception. That is not the only type of wedge. The door stopper, Keyshawn, which looks like this. That is a wedge. It's used to separate the door from the floor, and it also lifts the door some, so it stops the door from opening. So it does lift the door. In addition to the wedge, we also, of course, have our knives. Any questions about that? Okay, then let's go back to our first page and write our first simple machine, which is a wedge. You can fold your paper or you can put the line in the middle, but we are separating our notes. You're going to write when Miss Wiggins writes? You write. A wedge is an object. Everyone can see, correct? Yes. With at least one slanting side, ending, and I'm using the top portion of this to create myself another line, but you keep writing, ending in a sharp edge to separate or cut things, like your axe and your knife and your saw. I'm just calibrating the screen. So again, a wedge is an object with at least one slanting side, ending in a sharp edge to separate or cut things. Any questions? Got it? Everyone have it? Yes. I can move? Number 2. What are these? Screws. What are they used for? Raise your hand. To tighten something. What else? Hold things down. Where have you seen these? Where are these? Doors. And doors. Where else? Tables. Chairs. Beds. Light switches. You said everything needs to put together. A lot of things for wood. Okay, let's take a look at a short video about screws. Shut up.
If you take a cylinder and wrap an inclined plane around it, you have the design for our 6th simple machine, the screw. The thread of the screw is an inclined plane that sticks out from the body of the cylinder. We use screws all the time to fasten things together. When you apply force to turn a screw, this simple machine moves into an object. Its threads exert a powerful force on the material being pierced. This scientist is taking a core sample from a tree to study the tree's rings. This simple machine uses a screw to overcome the tree trunk's resistance. Little force is necessary, and the sample pulls out easily. The screw screw may have been invented as early as 400 BC. Even in ancient times, people used simple machines as the building blocks for more complex ones. From a simple screw, the ancient Egyptians developed an early form of paper called papyrus. A screw was used to tighten the clamp on the press, flattening and squeezing out any excess water from the papyrus. From that day to this, machines have played a vital role in building societies. Machines have been used to create priceless pieces of art, buildings that tower over our landscapes, and devices that enable us to explore our solar system.
So are screws simple machines? What's a simple machine?
A screw.
Used to make work easier. So would you say a screw is a simple machine?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's talk about, even though those things are things that may not interest you. Talk about things in our society like buildings and things of that nature. It also talks about back in the olden days when paper was being made, they used it to clamp down and squeeze out the water of paper. But let's talk about something a little bit more practical. So during the Middle Ages, and I know I said practical, and you're like, you're talking about Middle Ages. Well, in modern medicine during that time, they used these screws for something in bones. Like, for instance, if someone were to break a bone. Now, our bones normally fuse back together. That's why we put on something called a cast to help our bones mend back together. But sometimes the bones can't mend back together because they've broken or shattered to the point where they're unmendable. Our bones are like chalk, per se. If you took a piece of chalk and you smashed it down and ground it down, what would it turn to? Dust, or little itty bitty pieces that are very difficult in putting back together. Now, if someone breaks their bone to a point where it's shattered into little bitty pieces, that's not going to fuse back together. It's no longer just a break. It's a shattering of a bone. My husband, in a car accident, shattered his bones in his arm. So it's not going to fuse back together. But we don't want to just leave that arm non-working. We want it to still be function. So doctors in science have come up with things to use. They used to use wooden screws. And they would have to numb that area to be able to put a wooden screw in there to mend it back together, because you told me it holds it back together so that that arm can now function and be used. Today, doctors use metal screws. How many of you know someone with metal in their body? Rods or screws? A lot of basketball players may have metal rods or screws in their ankle or their knee. My husband has rods and screws in his elbow and his wrist. Now, no, inside, it's mending his bones together. Now, granted, even though it's workable, so he still has function of his arm, there are still certain things that he cannot do. His wrist, he cannot bend it back like this. He can only bend it a certain extent. So what has stopped? Can he no longer do? He can't shoot a basketball. Eating is different now for him because he can't turn that wrist a certain way. So he has to hold the spoon a certain way because he is right-handed, and that is the hand that it affects. When it gets really, really cold outside, what happens when metal gets cold? When it gets cold, metal gets cold. What do you think happened with that metal inside of him? So he's in a lot of pain. When it's cold outside, that metal gets cold. And when they take x-rays, you see things like this. Holds everything back together. So this is where our screws are used to make work easier as well. So let's then move back to our notes. And our second one is a screw. And a screw is an inclined plane you should be writing if I'm writing. Inclined plane wrapped around a pole which holds things together. How you spell together? Or lifts things. So it says a screw is an inclined plane wrapped around a pole which holds things together or lifts things. Like that one video we just saw where it lifts the tree. I mean, it took part of the tree out. Questions? Huh?
Does it hurt to people?
Well, they have to get when you.
No, like when you move
Sometimes it's painful. I just said it out loud. A screw is an inclined plane wrapped around a pole which holds things together or lifts things. Questions? Okay, I'm going to take another short look at a video about screws. It'll come back up on the screen. Or get it from your partner.
These machines have been used throughout the world for thousands of years. They are still used today and can be found as the basis for all other machines. A compound machine is two or more simple machines combined. This unusual device is actually an apple or potato peeler. To begin, we spear an apple on the wedge-shaped prongs. Next, the cutting blades are adjusted. There is a blade on the side that peels away the apple skin. There are also cutting blades that are located in such a way that as the apple moves forward, it is cut into a long spiral. When the crank, which is a wheel and axle, is turned, the apple spins, and at the same time moves forward towards the main blade. The apple is peeled and cut into a spiral slice. The diameter of the circle the crank moves through is much larger than the diameter of the axle. The mechanical advantage is large, and therefore the effort required to turn the apple is very small. There is an additional simple machine in the axle. Notice how the axle resembles a screw. As the axle turns, the apple is moved forward towards the cutting blades. So this compound machine uses a couple of wedges, a wheel and axle, and a screw to perform its task.
Okay, so let's now then continue with our third one. What are your ideas about a wheel and a simple machine? Remember, what's a simple machine?
A wheel.
What's a simple machine?
Machines that make.
Okay, so what's your idea about a wheel being a simple machine? Would you say that's true?
Yes.
Aisha?
Yes.
Okay.
Have to walk everywhere you go.
So you won't have to walk everywhere you go? What are different ways that wheels are used in everyday complex machines? Cars. Give me something else. Bikes, motorcycles. Okay, something else. A cart. Good. Like in the grocery store? Or even the cart right here. Because think about it, no one invented the grocery buggy. Then what? You can either hold everything in your hand or carry in that basket.
Like you go into the 15 ounces or more.
Exactly.
Ooh,
Thank goodness for that buggy. A wagon. Stroller. Good. All right, let's take a look at a short video.
Look at another kind of simple machine. People depend on this machine all the time. Without this simple machine, there would be no cars or bicycles. You couldn't skateboard or rollerblade. What is this simple machine? This simple machine is a wheel that We are all familiar with wheels and axles on things like cars and skateboards, but there are some wheels and axles that you might not recognize right away. For example, a doorknob is a wheel. If you took the doorknob off, you'd see that it is attached to an axle. A wheel and axle is a kind of lever. How can this be? Well, it may seem clearer if you think of the bar of a lever as a spoke in a wheel, and the fulcrum as the axle. Add some more spokes all the way around, and a rim, and you have a wheel.
Alrighty. So our third one would be wheel and axle. And this lifts or moves things like loads. So your wheel and axle lifts or moves things. So far we have a wedge. A wedge is with at least one slanted side, which creates a sharp edge that's used to separate or cut things. We talked about a wedge being used in the kitchen, a wedge being used out in the field, maybe cutting trees, and a wedge also being used in the classroom to separate the floor from the door or lift the door to stop the door from closing or opening. We also have a screw, and a screw is an inclined plane wrapped around a pole which holds things together or lifts things. So we can screw wood together to build a bed, screw plastic together to build a chair, screw stuff together to make a table. You can even use it so that you can hang things up on the wall. Your wheel and axle is your next one. This helps lift or move things. Basically, we've talked about moving things. Moving on to the next one, we'll see how it works for lifting things. This video, the next one is called a lever. It's a lever, but he's going to pronounce lever because of his accents, and he's going to say leverage, but also known as leverage. So,
The lever. If you're sitting on a teeter-totter, looking for someone to teeter-totter with, and then a big fat guy comes along, what do? Do you want to risk it? Now, there's an easy way you could have avoided that. Two easy ways, in fact. You could have either have asked the fat guy to move nearer and nearer to the middle of the teeter-totter until you balanced. Or else, you could have made a little adjustment to the teeter-totter before he sat down on it. And then, you would also have balanced. Both methods really boil down to the same thing. You see that support the teeter-totter is resting on? Well, scientists have a fancy word for that. They call it a fulcrum, which is simply Latin for a support or pivot. Anyway, whether the fat guy moves himself closer to the fulcrum, or whether you move him closer to the fulcrum by moving the teeter-totter, the result is the same. The distance between him and the fulcrum becomes less than the distance between you and the fulcrum. And that's the secret of successful teeter-tottering with people heavier than yourself. When you double the distance, you can half the force. This is true whether you're using an inclined plane or a teeter-totter. Only we should stop calling it that, because when we use it to make work easier, it's really another sort of simple machine. It's really a lever. Yes, a lever. You use levers all the time, things that give you leverage. After the inclined plane, it's the commonest simple machine in the world. Even cavemen knew about levers. Not to mention old Archimedes in ancient Greece, who was actually the first person to state the principle of the lever. The longer the arm of the lever to which force is applied, the less that force need be. In fact, he got so excited about this one day that he said,
Give me a fulcrum on which to rest, and I will move the earth. That may have been taking things a bit too far. At least you now know enough to go down and apply Archimedes' principle of the lever to your teeter-totter.
All right, so our fourth simple machine is a lever. I know he said it so many times that you get stuck saying it that way, but it is a lever. What's a lever? It gives you what?
Balance.
Not necessarily balance, but it does give you some leverage. So it is a stiff bar supported by a, what was that Latin word? Fulcrum. Also known as a what? Pivot. All right. So a lever is a stiff bar supported by a fulcrum, also known as a pivot, and it's used to lift or move things. In the real world, a lever would be used in the event that you have a flat tire. What's needed when you have a flat tire besides the tire? Air. If your tire is all blown out, meaning no air, meaning it's busted. What? The thing to lift the car up, which is called a jack. And you've seen people stand there and push the jack down so that it's going to lift the car up. That's a lever. It gives you leverage to be able to lift that car up. It makes work a lot easier because then you don't have to lift the car with your hands and hold it up for someone to change the tire. The jack does it for you. Any questions? Okay, then let's take a look at the fifth one. Are you ready? In a second. Fulcrum, pivot. Fulcrum is also known as a pivot. Or move things. And it'll show back up in case you didn't get it, but I want to move on to the next one. Have you ever seen this before? What is it? It's a pulley. Let's take a look at a short video about it. Now here you have a little robot. No one speaks robot language, and he has a certain task that he has to do. So let's take a look. Now, he needs to use that little glob thingy. And he wants to get that radio over to him. Somehow, some way. And he feels he needs to use a pulley or some sort. I'm going to try this first one with only 2 wheels. Notice his force level. He's doing some pulling. Oh, goodness. It's lifting it a little, but he's using a lot of energy and force to get it even lift a little. So he says, okay, maybe that's not the right one. Let me try another one. Not as much force, but still the same lift. Getting a little bit higher. But he doesn't know for sure. So he's going to try this other looking thingy. A hook. Not a pulley, but just a hook. That doesn't move it at all. This crazy looking contraption of pulleys. It's too tangled. So he's going to go with the one that he was getting more lift with. Try that again. It still takes some work, However, not as much work needed if he had to just lift it with his arms. Is it doing the job? Remember, the task was to get the little radio over to him. Did he get the job done? What was the task of a pulley? To lift things or move things. So he got the radio. So then our fifth one is a pulley. Make sure you spell it correctly. And it's a grooved wheel. Grooved meaning it has indentations in it. Indentations in it for what? With a rope. So the rope can be able to wind through those indentations. Used to raise, lower, or move things. He used it to raise something heavy. You also can use it if something heavy is up top to kind of lower it or move something out of the way. Yeah, this is what I have. That's how I had it set up for you. If you went all the way down on your paper, that's perfectly fine. But I was trying to help you out this way. Everyone have this? Whenever I'm writing something on the smartboard, try to put it exactly how I put it. There's a method to my madness because I'm trying to teach you good note-taking skills. Pulley, grooved wheel with a rope used to raise, lower, or move things. And our last one. What are these? Ramps, also known as inclined planes. Very short video about inclined
Plane
planes.
is used to move objects from one elevation to another with a decrease in effort. Moving this heavy carton into the van is easier with an inclined plane.
Notice he did not have to lift the box up to the top of the truck. He was just able to walk up the inclined plane. So our sixth one is our inclined plane. And it's a slanted surface connecting lower levels to high levels. So instead of having to lift it and push it up, you can just walk up the inclined plane. So a lever in real world you would use to maybe jack a car up so that you can change a tire. A pulley, we use it, well, I don't know if this school, but most schools use it to lift the flag for the flagpole. Anyone owns a well, they use a pulley to pull the well up. An inclined plane when you're moving, or even when wheelchairs have to travel from one location to another. Compound machines. Using the word compound that you learn in English, what does compound mean? What does the word compound mean? Two or more. Does it say compound? Two or more. So two or more what? What type? Two or more simple machines to do what?
To do a bigger job.
Used to do what? Used to make work easier. Like that apple peeler. It had a screw. It also had a wheel and axle. Now, we're going to take a look at some real life stuff after you write this. And we're going to take a look and see how these simple machines are in our real world and what type of work does it make easier for us. And as we're looking at that, you may want to put some examples down on your paper as to what these simple machines are. Let's not use this time to talk.
Oh, I played this game before. I hated it.
Thank you for your comments. We don't need them. What room would you like to visit?
Bathroom. Bathroom.
Hey there, come on in. This is my bathroom. Oh, don't worry, I just cleaned. Why don't you have a look around and try to find and identify all 10 simple machines?
Shania. It's the start button. Sit down. Sit down. Pay attention to this right now. Press this. Press start. Shh. The rest of us are quiet. You have to find a simple machine in there.
I see one.
Find something that you may think is a simple machine, or just find something in there that you use anyway.
You can't look at it.
Something in the bathroom. Shh.
Use that.
Touch it. Try touching something else. What does the handle on a toilet do? Let her answer it. Put your hand down.
I'm not that down.
All right. What type of simple machine is the handle on the toilet? Pick one. The rest of you are quiet. You might want to be jotting down some of these examples in your notes. The handle on a toilet. We've noticed that is a simple machine, but what type is it? She says lever, and she is correct. Hit continue. And read that aloud.
This.
Yes.
The handle on the toilet is a lever. When you push the lever, it flushes the toilet.
Very good. Another volunteer. You might want to be jotting down these examples. It will help you for your homework.
What does the doorknob?
Shh.
What type of simple machine has a doorknob? Oh, this is
Read it very loud.
A doorknob is a wheel and axle. When you turn the knob, it rotates, and an axle, which then unlatches the door.
Very good. Another volunteer. Sanavi. The rest of what you clicked on.
Oh.
What does the block and tackle do? Just lower the TV in the. Good. What type of simple machine is this?
The heavy TV is lowered and raised by two pulleys working together.
Very good. All right. Let's move on. Your homework. It looks like this. You all have it in front of you now. Your mission for this homework is to find as many simple machines as possible in our school and in your home. You're going to record machines on the back. Follow the directions below. If you do not follow them exactly, you will only receive 50% credit. This is due next class at the beginning of class. Nothing will be accepted after the beginning of next class. The instructions are listed below. Your materials that you will need are your notes. So you're going to be taking this home. This should be glued into your next page. Pay attention, you two. You have your instructions, which is this page, and your answer sheet, which is on the back. All around us, there are examples of each of the 6 simple machines. You're going to name as many as you can using the following rooms only. This room, which is our classroom, the cafeteria, the bathrooms, and your home. Any room in your home. It has more information down there for you to read. If you flip it over to the back, I've done one for you for this room. It's a pulley, and the pulley is located on our window blinds. Room 704, which is here. It helps to lift and lower the blinds. Any questions about your homework? As many as you can. Questions? Just don't, as many as you can, just don't go over these over the ones that are here. No less than 7. Any questions?
So more than 7.
This concludes this lesson.